And there's quite a lot of support, an awful lot of support coming in for David Davis and what he's done. The British public didn't, in fact, have the same level of support, it appears, for the 42 days, though, which was the central tenet, if you like, of Mr Davis's pledge to go for a by-election. Let's speak with Geraldine Smith, Labour MP for Morecambe. Geraldine, hello, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good. David Davis, saviour or sulker?
Well, I think he's lost the plot, really, I think.
Can I just dwell on
something? It's a waste of taxpayers' money, this by-election. He's on an ego trip, and, I just think it's a complete waste of time.
But has he got a point if the rest of the country are sort of... I mean, I appreciate the 42-day limit, whatever the controversies are over that. Most polls that were done, and I think the last one I read was actually in the Daily Telegraph, said that 2/3 of people supported the 42 days. I mean, we can argue forever as to what the rights and wrongs of it are. But that the broader point that he made, that we are the most spied upon nation in the world, we have more ID databases than dictatorships, there's something in that that's worth a debate, isn't there, Geraldine?
There is. It's always worth debating these issues, but I would say the complaints I get in my own constituency about CCTV cameras is if they've not got any film in them, or the police can't, people want them because they feel they make their lives more secure. And, the 42 days, it was paramount that the government should protect the British public after the horror of 7/7 in London.
Yeah, but you know it doesn't really do that, Geraldine, don't you? It doesn't protect us anymore. It just allows people to be held against charge and essentially dismantles the central tenet of our legal system.
So we should go against the police advice. When the police are saying this is important, we should take the risk. Well, I would much rather err on the side of caution on these important issues.
Well, what about you say the police advice, obviously it depends on which police you ask in that respect. What about the Director of Public Prosecution, the man who's going to be prosecuting this case? We could have taken his advice, of course, who said no evidence for that. Or maybe even the Secret Services, who didn't even ask for 42 days, which is extraordinary.
Well, I was reading in the paper yesterday about a man who lost his daughter in the London explosions, a beautiful young woman, and he wanted the police to do everything possible to bring these people to justice and to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And if the police need more time, then, most ordinary people can't see the problem with that.
But holding somebody for extra days doesn't actually increase our security, does it? It just increases the amount of time you hold somebody for.
If you need to gather evidence, sometimes this stretches across countries, sometimes there's all sorts of computers involved, all sorts of data that has to be collected. It's not an easy job.
But wouldn't the Secret Services and the MI6s of this world, wouldn't they be asking for it way before any police officer asks for it? They're the guys in the know.
I think they've made it clear that the threat's very serious to our country.
Well, yeah, but that's a different thing, isn't it? A threat being serious and needing to hold somebody for 42 days without any kind of 6 weeks out of somebody's life is quite a chunk. It's quite a substantial alteration to our system. You'd concede to that.
At the end of the day, Parliament has to make the decision because Parliament's held to account by the British people, and it was felt by politicians after they'd taken the advice of the security services and the police that it was the right thing to do. That was their judgment, and I fully support the government on this. I think it was the right thing to do. People talk about the Magna Carta. We're not living in the 12th century. We're in the 21st century, and things have changed, and these are very serious times we're living in.
So because it's an old document, we should ignore it?
Sorry?
Because it's an old document, we should ignore it because it looks a little bit tatty.
I'm not saying we should ignore it, but what's the difference between 28 days and 29 days?
Well, 2 weeks, quite a bit, really.
Well, is it? Is it? If the worst possible thing can happen is someone innocent was held for 2 weeks, longer than they should have been, at the end of that they can claim compensation, well, I'd rather take that chance of being wrong on that than someone being blown up in a bomb.
So what is the limit then?
Because we let someone out walking on the street.
Do we just keep it going? Because, you can't get first, whether it becomes law or not is another issue, but you can't, of course, suggest, surely, Geraldine Smith, that this will just carry on. If somebody said 90 days, would you vote for that?
Well, I did vote for 90 days.
You were happy with
that?
Just keep locking these people up. Don't worry about charges. Keep them in the chiller.
No, it's not about that.
It's quite dictatorial, isn't it?
It's about dealing with
This is a Labour MP I'm speaking to here.
The very, very serious terrorist threat that our country faces.
And how would you give somebody?
You in London
how
on the
would
day?
you give somebody?
Were you in London on the 7th of July?
Yes, I was. I was working on air on that day.
Can you remember the chaos? Can you remember the heartbreak,
you are
the misery of those families?
seducing the case in order to bring a point, it's nothing to do with that, and you know it's nothing to do with that.
It is everything to do with that. Innocent people potentially could lose their lives because of terrorists being let go because we didn't have sufficient time to gather the complex evidence that is sometimes required.
What I do remember, Geraldine Smith, is at the time Ken Livingstone, Mayor of London, Tony Blair, Prime Minister of the country, and just about every Member of Parliament across the board all said, we will not give in to these people. And that's exactly what you and your colleagues have done by voting for a substantial alteration to our legal system. Absolutely. That's worth more than 10 canary wolves.
I totally disagree with you. You are completely wrong. This is about protecting people. That's our job, and it's a job of government. If we fail to do that, if we're soft on terrorism, take the easy option, pander to a variety of groups who disappear when something happens, they're not on TV then after there's been some massive explosion or people killed, where will they be then? No, we've got to make sure that doesn't happen. And, this is hopefully we won't have to use it. But I think the legislation should be there if it's needed.
All right, Geraldine Smith, appreciate your time. She's the Labour MP for Morecambe, who believes unequivocally not just in the 42 days, but if you had to notch it up to 90, she'd have happily voted for that as well. Quite extraordinary. Dr. Sean Gabb is the director of the Libertarian Alliance. He's with us now. Sean Gabb, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Rip the Magna Carta up doesn't mean anything anymore. It's an old document.
Well, I don't know whether I should more despise Geraldine Smith or feel sorry for the electors who are gulled into sending her to Westminster. This is not the 12th century, this is the 21st century. Well, it may be a rather old and tatty document, but the Magna Carta it's by no means the oldest, most radical document of its kind, but it's the foundation of our constitutional history. No Magna Carta, no elections to Parliament, no trial by jury, no habeas corpus, no American Constitution, no civil freedom, no due process of law. But in her case, it's an old document. It's outmoded. We need a police state. I mean, I've just listened to a woman saying that we must give the police whatever laws they want. Well, what else do the police want? 6 months, 12 months, God knows what. The idea that this will be used against terrorists is a nonsense. This is administrative detention. It means the government can round up dissidents if it so pleases, put them in prison for 28 days, and at the end of that time let them go without charge, in which time their credit rating's been ruined, their lives been turned upside down. You only need to threaten that to people. If you don't shut up, if you don't do as we tell you, we'll arrest you on some spurious terrorism charge. We'll let you go before we need to charge you. Now, anyone who says, oh no, that couldn't possibly happen in this country, is stupid. We were told that when the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act was passed in 2000, this would only be used in cases affecting national security. Well, it's being used by local councils up and down the country to see if your dog is fouling footpaths.
Well, this, of course, this takes us to the point, really, of David Davis's resignation. It's this kind of legislation, what he called the intrusive spying on a nation, the state having such a huge control with databases and ID cards and CCTV and the like. I'm assuming, from everything that David Davis said, and we heard his resignation speech outside the House of Commons, you would be pretty much chiming with everything on his agenda.
I did say some years ago I would never vote Conservative again. Well, obviously you should never say never. If I were a constituent in David Davis's constituency, I would not only vote for him, I would go knocking on doors day and night. I would hope the Liberal Democrats didn't put up a candidate against him. I hope the UK Independence Party will not put up a candidate against him. And I do look to David Cameron and the rest of the Conservative leadership to give him their fullest backing.
And do you think he should be back in the shadow Home Secretary position after this by-election, which he'll clearly win?
Well, my own personal view is that if and when he wins this by-election, he should be the leader of the Conservative Party.
Well, we know that's not going to happen, though, don't we?
We know it's not going to happen, but how often in a generation do you have a politician who is so strongly minded about an issue of such fundamental importance that he resigns his seat.
Well, is he strongly minded, or has he just got a bit of a sulky ego and he's feeling a little bit bruised that he didn't get his way and he doesn't believe the Tory party are totally with him on it, and he's got a bit upset and he's thrown a wobbler and toys have gone out the pram?
The government has just, by lavish and indiscriminate bribery, got through a measure which allows administrative detention. And he is now going to give the people a chance to vote for or against this. Now, whatever other private motivations he may have are of no importance. This is something on which everyone who believes in liberal democracy, Conservative, Liberal Democrat, Labour, UKIP, whatever, we all have a duty to support David Davis.
Sean, just tell me this, the amount of CCTV and databases and ID cards and fingerprints and Lord knows what else, iris recognition, you name it, it's there. He made the point that even dictatorships around the world don't have all of this kit, but we do. Why? What is it that seduced this government into such a large scheme of spy-based, data-based philosophy towards its citizens?
There are two possible answers. One is that these people want a quick and cheap fix to the problem of rising crime levels, and they believe that a techno solution will fix that problem. The other is that they're just bad people who want a police state. And I must say, I incline to the second view. These are bad people. They want a police state. They do not believe in liberal democracy. These people are not like previous Labour governments. I mean, as a Conservative, I would have had endless disagreements with the Wilson and the Attlee and the Callaghan governments. But no. Past Labour governments, they operated within the confines of liberal democracy. These people are not normal. Look at them. There's something strange, something robotic about them. Most of these people were, in their younger days, Marxists. They used to say, oh, that's McCarthyism. No. Marxism as an ideology rots your mind. It makes you incapable of acting like a liberal democrat in later life. So they've shaved off their radical face here. They've put aside their donkey jackets, but their minds are still filled with the same garbage, and they're now running this country, and they're turning it into a high-tech equivalent of East Germany.
So should I be inviting you and our previous guest, Labour MP Geraldine Smith, to the same drinks party? You'd be great in the same room together. I'd just stand back and watch you. I'd set you on each other.
If I met the woman, I wouldn't know what to do, whether to laugh at her or vomit on her.
OK, well, interesting words to finish on. There's Dr. Sean Gabb with us on TalkSport. You've heard both sides of the libertarian argument. Hey, she's pro-everything. She thinks David Davis is nuts. Dr. Sean Gabb, however, has reconsidered his liking of the Tory party, all because of David Davis. 08717 22 3344. Just email and text in on this, by the way.